Pavitra.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, sir. Why have we all gathered here today? It is because the government of the day wishes to have a discussion on our national song, Vande Mataram, in the 150th year of its birth. हम ध्यान से आपकी बात सुने, राजनाथ जी और पीएम साहब दोनों। बहुत खूबसूरत है हर बात, लेकिन अगर दिल भी होता तो क्या बात होती? The irony is not lost on us parliamentarians present here, or on a billion-plus Indians who we represent, that we are living in an India today where real unemployment among the youth is upwards of 20%. That we are choking in a national capital where AQI routine levels are over 800, when the centre is purposefully starving non-BJP states of their Manrega, their housing and their water dues, where millions of people are being subjected to a hurried, arbitrary process of mass disenfranchisement, when in session after session, we in the opposition are bullied, browbeaten and prevented from raising pressing issues of national importance, suddenly the government finds it so important, so necessary, so urgent to discuss the historical complexities of a song. What is even more ironic is the claim that the hate and divisiveness in today's India can be linked back to this song. And by the way, just 2 weeks ago, on November 24, 2025, the Rajya Sabha Parliamentary Bulletin published a section on parliamentary customs and conventions, where it explicitly informed all members that the decorum and the seriousness of the proceedings of the House requires that there should be no Jai Hind, Vande Mataram or any other slogans raised in the House. So Vande Mataram, in your view, as of last week, placed on record in a parliamentary bulletin as a slogan that was both indecorous and non-serious. And yet, you suddenly want to discuss it for 10 hours in this House. Why? I'll tell you why. Because no doubt, some half-wit BJP IT cell minion has probably advised you that the Vande Mataram card, if played right, will give you an advantage to the BJP in the 2026 Bengal elections. There is no other reason behind the timing of this discussion, none at all, take it from me. But we are delighted. We are delighted not only to be able to get this fabulous opportunity to give you a lesson in history, but also to demonstrate to you that how delving into Vande Mataram will only prove how removed you are from the soul of Bengal, from the psyche of Bengal, and how our Ma will never be hostage to your narrow electoral goals. Yes. Let the history lesson begin. What do you say? Let it begin. Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay's two-stanza hymn, Vande Mataram, was first published in the literary journal Bongo Darshan on November 7, 1875. At that time, there were no patriotic societies or nationalistic organizations to speak of in India, except for the Indian League in Calcutta, which was founded by some patriotic Bengalis, Shishir Ghosh, Ananda Mohan Bose, Surendranath Banerjee, to rally public support against British colonial rule. The RSS and the BJP were nowhere in sight. The RSS was formed 50 years later, in 1925, and the BJP was formed 105 years later, in 1980. And incidentally, the ruling party, the Sangh Parivar, do not sing Vande Mataram. I remember this hilarious episode in 2017, I think it was, on TV, where there was a BJP spokesperson called Naveen Kumar Singh, and he was asked to sing Vande Mataram. He was looking at his mobile phone, and even then he couldn't sing it. Also, in August 2017, I remember a cabinet minister in the UP government, Baldev Singh Aulak, I think his name was, he was unable to correctly sing this song on a TV news show. In January 2019, before the last Lok Sabha election, BJP leaders held a protest where they were going to make Muslims sing the song. They themselves could not sing the song correctly, so the meeting descended into chaos, and the BJP leaders and their followers chanted slogans like, "Is desh mein agar rehna hoga, to Vande Mataram kehna hoga." So frankly, the BJP's commitment to this song is a badly scripted comedy. The British ban the use of the slogan Vande Mataram under the sedition laws and banned its singing in any public place. When India's youngest freedom fighter, Bengal's brave son, Khudiram Bose, was led to the gallows in 1908, he had Vande Mataram on his lips. When in 1927, Ram Prasad Bismil walked to the gallows in Gorakhpur jail, when Ashfaqullah Khan walked to the gallows in Faizabad jail, they all had Vande Mataram on their lips. But this is the same slogan that the Rajya Sabha bulletin finds non-decorous and non-serious in the Rajya Sabha. Who in the BJP, who in the RSS, who in the treasury benches can claim even a tenuous link to the freedom struggle, that today you feel you are the guardians of Vande Mataram and will teach us Bengalis and the rest of India what its significance is? Out of 585 total prisoners in Andaman Cellular Jail, Kalapani, between 1909 and 1938, 68%, 398 were Bengali. The second largest contingent was from the Punjab, 95 revolutionaries. Why did you not rename the cellular jail after Barin Ghosh, after Ullashkar Dotto, after Indu Bhushan Roy? What homage have you paid Bengal? What homage have you played the land of Vande Mataram? Today you're having a discussion on this. The hymn Vande Mataram did not gain much popularity till it was included in Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay's novel Anandamot in 1882 when it was published. Now, when he published it, he added 4 extra stanzas to it. The first 2 stanzas, which he had written in 1875, were a lyrical ode to the motherland. It says, giver of bliss, beauty. The version in the novel, which he incorporated in 1881-82, had a different tone than that of the original poem. The figure of sweetness and light was now endowed with a fearsome accoutrement and the trappings of war almost. But this is in keeping with the narrative of the novel, which was about the Shonnashi rebellion. It is important to note here that in the next 4 stanzas that he wrote, Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay used the words Shaptokoti, which means 7 crores. Now, 7 crores in the 1871 census was the population of undivided Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, and Assam. So this means that the novel, the hymn, was about Bengal. The hymn was about Bengal, and the mother he refers to is also in Bengal's concept and Bengal's context. This was not originally written as a nationalistic, pan-India song. It was not. Let's be very clear about that. So how did it become this nationalistic song? How does A.R. Rahman sing it in 1997? How? It was none other than the poet laureate Rabindranath Tagore who composed the first musical score of the song based on Desh Ragini around 1885. Rishi Bankim liked the song and the tune so much, he himself included it in the 3rd edition of his book, Anandamot, in 1886. Tagore, in 1937, writes to Nehru, and he writes to Nehru that the privilege of originally setting its first stanza to the tune was mine. When the author was still alive, Bankim died in 1894. He says, I set it to tune while Bankim was still alive. And I was the first person to sing it. So Tagore was the first person to sing it publicly before a public gathering of the Calcutta Congress in 1896. So Tagore sets the tune and he sings it publicly in the presence of Rahmatullah Saini, Dadabhai Naoroji, Surendranath Banerjee. The song gained mass popularity when? Only after 1905, when the Swadeshi movement as a reaction to Lord Curzon's partition of Bengal took place. Itinerant singers sung it in Prabhat Feris every morning to raise national consciousness. Rabindranath Tagore himself, on Raksha Bandhan Day, October 16th, 1905, led the famous anti-partition protest where Hindus and Muslims tied Rakhis on each other and said, Vande Mataram. Today, this BJP government, who claims to promote Vande Mataram, has ensured that even the moon, that moon of Raksha Purnima, that moon of Eid, has been partitioned. Hindu women can break their Karwa Chauth fast on their roof with the sighting of the moon, but a Muslim in a BJP-ruled state is forbidden from offering Eid ka namaz on his roof to the same moon. And you are blaming a song for India's divisiveness. The song was sung again during the Congress session in Benares in 1905 by Tagore's niece, Sharla Devi Chaudhurani, who replaced the Shaptokoti, the 7 crores, with Triksha Koti, which means 30 crores, which is the population of India in the last census of 1901. So this is the first time that the song is gathering a pan-national appeal. Gandhiji, in the Indian Opinion paper, he writes in December 1905 that this song is so popular. Just as we worship our mother, so is this song a passionate prayer to India. Tagore continued to use the refrain Vande Mataram almost as a slogan in some of his own songs. He says it in many of his own songs. Many of his own songs use the term Vande Mataram. The Swadeshi agitation of 1905 and 1908 saw Vande Mataram as a clarion call. The great Tamil poet Subramanya Bharati, he translated it in Tamil in 1905. It began to be sung in meetings and processions all over India, from coastal Andhra Pradesh, from Vijayawada and the Krishna, to after Jallianwala Bagh in the canals and cantonments of Punjab, where they didn't think of it as a Bengali Sanskrit hymn. They saw it as a shared call of resistance. You, this government today, claim to be the guardians, the true upholders of the spirit of Vande Mataram. We've listened to the Prime Minister for an hour. We've listened to the Honorable Defence Minister for an hour tell us about how they are the true upholders of Vande Mataram. So let me, as a true Bengali, as a proud Bengali, speak for 10 koti Bengalis today, who you call Bangladeshis, who you call Rohingyas. You harass us on the streets. In colonies, you throw us out when we are pregnant across the border. I'm going to dissect the song stanza by stanza and demonstrate how you are butchering both the spirit and the soul of Vande Mataram far more than any 1937 resolution ever did. Shujalang, Shupalang, Balayaja, Shitalang, Shushasamlang, Mataram. What do we have here? What have you done on your watch? Shujalang, beautiful abundant water. Over 70% of India's surface water is undrinkable today. India ranks 120 out of 122 countries in the Water Quality Index. 21 major cities, including Delhi and Bangalore, are expected to deplete their groundwater reserves by 2030. And yet, in the face of this data, the government is cutting the Jal Jeevan Mission money to all the states. Bengal itself is owed 3,000 crores in Jal Jeevan Mission money. This is what you are doing for Shujalang. Malayaja Shitalang, the cool, fresh air. This is a joke. The AQI in the national capital today is between 800 and 1,000 routinely. Our children are choking. The elderly are dying. You know what the centre's done? The centre has exempted 78% of thermal power plants from installing key anti-polluting systems. The Environment Ministry has spent less than 1% of its 858 crore pollution fund in 24-25. Fossil fuel-driven pollution claims 1.72 million lives in India, and premature mortality due to outdoor air pollution costs India $339 billion US. That's 9.5% of our GDP. That's what we are doing for Malayaja Shitala. Shosha Shamalam, the blessed fertility of the soil. What's the government done? The Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare saw a reduction in its budget of 2.5% this year. Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, meant for the poorest of farmers, suffered a cut of 3,600 crores. It is estimated that 37% of India's land is affected by degradation. 2/3 of soil samples collected from India are deficient in nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and 85% contain too little carbon for functioning soil systems. Shuhashining, Shumoduro Bhashining, sweet smile, sweet in speech. You, the ruling party, with your hate speech, routinely call for violence against Muslims and minorities. For calls from genocide in Haridwar to open threats in rallies, you use terms like vote bank, infiltrators, ghuspetia, those with more children as dog whistles. You impose Hindi on us. You call Bangla a Bangladeshi language. You have unleashed the worst kind of linguistic terrorism on all of us, where people are scared to speak their mother tongue in the streets of Delhi, in the streets of Gurgaon. There is no Shumodhura Bhashining in today's BJP. Shukhodang, Borodang, Matarang, give us happiness. Today, an arbitrary, hurried exercise of your design is making the Election Commission force such work pressure that BLOs are committing suicide. And what does the Election Commission say to us? They say, oh, it's in the line of duty. They should be happy doing it. India is ranking 118 out of 147 countries in the 2025 World Happiness Report. To be a minority in India today is to be perpetually suspect, perpetually second class, and perpetually subordinate. Far from feeling happy, minorities are fearing the state instead of feeling protected by it. Tumi vidya, tumi dharma. Sir, I have 22 minutes. Only two speakers.
1 minute. Time has to extend.
Okay.
Already we
Tumi
reached-
vidya, tumi dharma. Let's talk about vidya first.
Honorable members, we reached already 6 o'clock. I want to know the sense of the House. If the House decides, we can go on up to the discussion is over. Time can be extended. Time extended. Now you can speak.
Tumi vidya, tumi dharma. Let's talk about vidya first. Under this government, outlay for education is still at an abysmal 3.8%, far below the 6% envisaged by the NEP and far below other developed nations. Grant in aid for the All India Council of Technical Education has dropped nearly 61% in the last 2 years. The UGC's budget has been slashed by 47%. Let's take one example, Delhi University. The University of Delhi is grappling with a fund gap of 250 crores in this financial year. It needs 544 crores. The UGC has allocated just 313 crores. Tumi vidya? Doesn't seem so. Now we come to Tumi dharma. When Rishi Aurobindo translated the verses of Vande Mataram into English in Karma Yogi in 1909, he translated dharma as conduct, not religion. Here was the root of the difference between a communalistic and a nationalistic interpretation and the political use of Vande Mataram as a song, as a war cry. It's not a communalistic interpretation. It is a nationalistic interpretation, and Rishi Bonkim's hymn Dharma signifies conduct. And for a ruling party, for a prime minister, it should not just be Dharma, it should be Raj Dharma. I cannot help but remind this House of the late Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who in March 2002, when asked what a certain chief minister ought to do, famously said, Raj Dharm ka palan kare. Raj Dharm, Raja ke liye, Shasak ke liye. Praja praja mein bhed nahi ho sakta. Na janam ke aadhar pe, na jati ke aadhar par, na sampraday ke aadhar par. Hand on heart, tell this House, is the government fulfilling its dharma? No. Bahute tumi ma shakti, hriday tumi ma bhakti. Rishi Bonkim said, faith should be in your heart and strength should be in your arms. This government instead has moved faith into its arms. You have made bahute bhakti with your brute force, with your majority, and you're bulldozing your way into the national secular fabric. And your heart is weak because our enemies are striking again and again. And yet we are letting a president of a third country proudly proclaim over and over again that he blackmailed India into accepting a ceasefire. Omolang otulang, without a stain, without compare. Where has the government brought us today? Let me compare across some major global indices since 2014. The UN's report says inequality reduces India's Human Development Index by 31%, one of the highest losses in the region. The World Press Freedom Index, India fell from 140 in 2014 to 141 today. On the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Index, India went from 114 in 2014 to 131 today. Most important, on the Global Hunger Index, which measures child malnutrition, India used to rank 55 out of 76 in 2014. Today, it ranks 102 out of 123. So we are certainly not without stain. And let me, for once and for all, debunk the ruling party's false claim that a truncated song is always an insult. Jana Gana Mana was originally written as a Brahmo hymn in 1911 and consisted of 5 stanzas. It was called Bharato Bhaggo Vidhata. Remember that the Brahmo Samaj was formed by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, and this is the same Raja Ram Mohan Roy that the Madhya Pradesh Higher Education Minister Inder Singh Parmar called a British agent, a dalal, working for religious conversion. If your party's man is calling Raja Ram Mohan Roy a dalal, I wonder what kind of higher education he can be responsible for. Jana Gana Mana is also a truncated song. Of the 5 stanzas, only the first stanza is sung as a national anthem. The second stanza says, Aho raho tumi aubhana procharito shunito abo udaro bani, Hindu, Bauddha, Sikh, Jain, Paroshik, Musalman, Christiani. This means something relatively simple. Tagore addresses Bharat Bhagya Vidhata, the maker of India's destiny. And here is a verse whose restoration would need a strong symbol, a strong gesture against divisiveness. But you're not bringing a resolution to bring that in. You're talking about what religious context you can view Vande Mataram in. And this is where you've made the biggest mistake, Mr. Prime Minister. You ignited this entire debate as a distraction to take away from your government's failings, which I have demonstrated using the song's lyrics as a key. But you do not stop there. One of the chief spokespersons of the BJP, a fellow MP here, went one step further and said that this truncation was done at Nehru's behest. He said he had learned this by reading a book by the historian Sachiv Bhattacharya. Mr. Chairperson, sir, there is no such book. There is no historian called Sachiv Bhattacharya who has written a book on the history of Vande Mataram. He does not exist. He does not exist, except in the fertile manure that constitutes the MP's imagination. There is a historian who has written a book about Vande Mataram, and his name is Shobboshachi Bhattacharya, not Sachiv Bhattacharya. The BJP dare not refer to this book, because if they do, they would have to admit that this very specific book says that the identity of the man who suggested that Vande Mataram be sung in a shortened version so as not to provoke divisive action is not Nehru. It is not Bose, it is Kavi Guru Rabindranath Tagore. So let's set the record straight. Bhattacharya is clear. First Subhash Bose, then the members of the Congress Working Committee, convening for the Calcutta session of the Congress in 1937, wrote to Tagore, asking him his views on the song. To his reply, Tagore wrote, "The core of Vande Mataram is a hymn to goddess Durga. This is plain, so there can be no debate about it. The novel Anandamath is a work of literature, and so the song is appropriate to it. But Parliament is a place of union for all religious groups, and there the song cannot be appropriate." On October 26, 1937, 3 days prior to the session, Gurudev wrote again to Nehru on this issue. And so he, with a special relation to Vande Mataram, suggested that the first two stanzas should be adopted, and his letter profoundly influenced the resolution.
Please.
Last para, sir. Last para.
Please.
Rishi Bankim was a highly complex mind, and Anandamath was not his final word on communal history. His last novel, Sitaram, imagines a Hindu realm founded by a heroic and idealistic king who defeats his Muslim adversaries. However, he comes to embody and exceed all the evil attributed to Muslim, and all his Hindu associates abandon him. So if you have the guts to get into the issue, target the man who very wisely edited the song. It was neither Nehru nor Bose, it was Rabindranath Tagore. Come. If you have the courage to withstand truth, come. Fight an election in Bengal in 2026 by saying that Tagore was responsible for dividing India. Let us see where that takes you. Tagore is the one who sang Vande Mataram publicly. He anchored it to our conscience of our nation. It was Bengal's clarion call. It is no jumla that the BJP can expropriate before an election. You try it and you will see what its consequences are. 10 crore Bengalis will rise, 20 crore arms to teach you the real meaning of Vande Mataram. Vande Mataram.